This episode is brought to you by Iams Pet Food. When you choose Iams dry dog or cat food, you can see a difference in your pet with your own eyes. Healthy energy in 5 days, healthy digestion in 10 days, and healthy skin and coat in just 25 days. Satisfaction for you and them. Guaranteed or your money back. Feed Iams dry dog or cat food and see a visible difference. Visit iams.com/difference to learn more.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk.
Who would have thought that going into week 9 of the college football season, the game against the Maine Black Bears would be a must-win situation for the Oklahoma Sooners? But that's exactly where they are as Saturday approaches. Oklahoma is sitting at 4-4 on the season, still needs to pick up 2 more wins in its last 4 games just to get to bowl eligibility. What's up, everybody? I'm Matt. This is the Sooner Nation podcast. Running solo today without my boy Caleb, but we're going to power through this anyway. Oklahoma hosts the Maine Black Bears Saturday afternoon in Norman. A game that's so important that you can find it on the SEC Network Plus. I think that's a fancy way just of saying ESPN Plus. But regardless, the Sooners are in bad shape in terms of postseason eligibility. They've got Maine, they've got Missouri on the road. They've got Alabama in Norman, and then they've got LSU in Baton Rouge to close out the season. And this is a program that, remember, preseason was picked to finish 8th in the SEC, far below that right now. They still have a chance with these last 3 conference games that are on the schedule, but I don't think anybody in their right mind really questioned whether bowl eligibility would be up in the air going into the final month of the season. But that's where Oklahoma is. And so it literally makes this game a must-win for Oklahoma, and so much so that even with 5 wins going into Columbia, Missouri, you're still questioning, can they beat Missouri? Can they beat Alabama? Can they beat LSU to get that 6th win? And then in the bowl game, you have the chance to finally get above 500, assuming you're only going to win one of those final 3. Huge game. If Oklahoma comes out and lays an egg like social media thinks that they might do on Saturday, if Oklahoma comes out and lays an egg against Maine, then heads definitely have to roll. I don't believe to this point, I really don't believe to this point Brent Venables, I don't believe he's on the hot seat. Now, with some of the fan base, certainly, I think he is. Lincoln Riley was on the hot seat. Even Bob Stoops was on the hot seat with a certain portion of the fan base that expects perfection every time this team hits the field. But Brent Venables, I don't believe he's getting pressure from the administration just yet. You go out and you lose to Maine, that all changes. Donors are going to start pulling out. The fan base, that sellout streak is going to find itself in jeopardy, on and on and on. But we're talking about, I feel like Allen Iverson there. We're talking about practice. No, we're talking about Maine. And not even an FBS school. That's how far south this season has fallen for Oklahoma. And it's interesting to me with the quarterbacks, the shuffle that's happened. Start with Jackson Arnold, doesn't live up to expectations. You go to Michael Hawkins, he looks like a true freshman. You go back to Jackson Arnold, and you get what I believe was the best version of Jackson Arnold in that game against Ole Miss, and with an offense that's still incredibly limited. And now everyone wants to talk about, well, Jackson Arnold, he should be coming back next year. Because 3 weeks ago, we were hoping this guy would hit the portal like right now. And so that's been some of the talk this last week leading up to the game, because there isn't really a lot to talk about with this game. It should be a blowout win. It should be a comfortable win for the Sooners. We're going to jump in more of that here in the next segment. But it's interesting to me. I mean, we've always said the quarterback position is the money position. That's the position that everybody talks about. That's the position that, literally is the highest paid position on the team. It's the position where the backup quarterback is the most popular person on the team. So much so that if Jackson Arnold struggles, maybe I should say the next time Jackson Arnold struggles, people are going to call for Casey Thompson, because he's the quarterback they haven't seen yet. You've seen Michael Hawkins. You've seen Jackson Arnold. Now they're going to be like, put Casey in. Let him try it. I was already there. I was there before the Texas game. I was there at Tennessee, just because of the experience that Casey brings to the table. But this is Jackson Arnold's team. Once again, this is his team. And the Ole Miss game was the best game, I believe, that he's put together in a Sooner uniform. And that begs the question, is he coming back? Why are we not asking that question of the receiving corps? Why are we not asking that question of the running back room? I know why we're not asking that question about the offensive line, because do we really want those guys back? But this football season, I think tumultuous is a good word to describe it. It has raised questions on multiple fronts about the future of this program, because you're already building towards 2025. Do you start putting these guys in there that still have some room to spare in terms of their redshirt availability? You get those 4 games. Maybe you got some guys who have only played in 1, have played in 2, and you start working towards 2025. But the quarterback position is a very critical position. I mean, it's elementary football. Your quarterback is typically your most important guy, not just on the offense, but on the team. And why Arnold did reclaim the starting job after being benched against Tennessee, there has to be. You can't logically discuss this position and think about it without questioning long-term commitment on both sides. Is Jackson Arnold committed to Oklahoma long-term, and is Oklahoma committed to Jackson Arnold long-term? I think those are justifiable questions. I think what I'm saying is, I think it's very fair to say, is Jackson Arnold, is he committed to Oklahoma for 2025? I don't see why he would be. That's a fair statement. But also, I think it's fair to say, is Oklahoma, are they committed to Jackson Arnold in 2025? I don't see why they would be, because he played 1 good game. Out of 8, he played 1 good game. So you've got the last 4 weeks of the season, the last 4 games, 5 weeks. It's almost like an audition for both. Oklahoma needs to put a big enough impression on Jackson Arnold that he would want to stay and remain a part of this locker room. But yet the same thing, I think Jackson Arnold needs to show that what we saw early in the season through those first 4 games, that's not who he is. And so this game on Saturday against the Black Bears, that goes a long way, both of those. What happens in the crowd, the things that are said on social media, the things that are yelled at him from the stadium, what happens with the X's and O's. Seth Luttrell is gone, in which, ironically, Jackson Arnold was supposed to be Seth Luttrell's boy. But how is it going? Brent Venables expressed some confidence about Arnold's future last Tuesday. He stated, he's likely, eagerly ready to return and continue his development. But again, you have to think logically. This is not the era of college football that ended 3 years ago. This is the transfer portal era. This is the NIL era. And there is a trend, a growing trend, and I would even say an alarming trend of players transferring for multiple reasons. They feel disrespected. They feel underappreciated. They downright feel undervalued. They don't fit the schematics of the offense. Those are more than enough reasons for players to bolt. So amongst Sooner Nation, should this raise concerns? Absolutely. Especially when Brent Venables admitted that his belief about Jackson Arnold is based on an assumption. Now, we assume Michael Hawkins is safe for coming back next year. I mean, he's a legacy, right? His dad played for the program. He's in the program. They love the university. He was thrust into the spotlight before his time was up. It just wasn't time for him. He wasn't ready for the moment. I believe those are all things that Michael Hawkins would confess to, and none of those are a reason to jump into the transfer portal. He came to Oklahoma expecting to sit behind Jackson Arnold to develop and then take the spotlight once Arnold left for the NFL. Now, that is an assumption. There's nothing solid to go on. That's how I feel. That's how a lot of Sooner Nation feels. And apparently Brent Venables feels the same way about Jackson Arnold. It's an assumption that he wants to be here, an assumption that he's coming back, an assumption that he's going to continue to sacrifice and give himself to the team that fired the coach he was the closest to, and after he had been pulled away from the starting job. Listen to what Brent says on Tuesday. My assumption is that you're dang right he wants to be back. Why would he not? That's how I look at it. Now, pay attention here. It's not that's what he told me. It's not this is the conversation I had with his parents. This is my assumption, and this is how I look at it. Then Venables changes his tone just a little bit. Now, I don't have my head in the sand. I would be concerned if I was thinking in that way. I wonder if he wants to be back. Well, shoot. You're the starting quarterback at Oklahoma. That's your dream. You turned down a lot of good people to come here, and now you face some headwinds, and now you're just going to quit? I don't see that in him, and I don't see that in guys in our locker room. Does it happen in college football or in life? You're darn right it does. But not with people that are built with the right stuff. Not at all. And Jackson's got the right stuff. Now, I hope what Brent Venables says is true. I hope that he's also basing this off of some information that he has, inside information, as the head coach of this program. But the reality is, he's saying it's an assumption, and he's saying it's the way he views things. Now, Arnold showed strong signs of improvement. Brent Venables says this is his team. You are the starting quarterback, meaning they're not looking back to Michael Hawkins. That's not something that's going to be over his shoulder. And we're just 1 week, well, now we're going into 2 weeks, under the new tutelage under Joe John Finley and Kevin Johns. But Arnold finished the game in Oxford against Ole Miss with 182 passing yards and a pair of touchdowns. He completed 71% of his passes, which was a career best completion percentage as a starting quarterback. He was dangerous with his legs, 103 rushing yards. And now, obviously, much of that was taken away with 10 quarterback sacks, but it was the best version of Jackson Arnold that Oklahoma, the program, the team, the coaches, the fans, it's the best version of Jackson Arnold that we've seen on the field, and it leaves more than enough room for optimism about the future of that position with him at the helm. But that said, how comfortable are you, how comfortable are we that we're going into the last 4 games of the season, and the best thing that Brent Venables has to work with right now is an assumption in regards to what his quarterback might do at the end of the season. Is that enough for you? Arnold's decision to return to Oklahoma is probably going to depend on several factors. His personal goals, the team's overall direction, who they bring in as the new offensive coordinator, opportunities that he's going to get elsewhere. Is someone going to offer him some money? You have to think that Oklahoma's coaching staff, they're going to need to provide him with the necessary support and the resources for him to succeed. But what they have to do is they're going to have to make another recruiting pitch at him. They're going to have to get honest feedback from him and his family, and they're going to have to work with more than just assumptions going into these last 4 weeks of the season, because this is the most important position. And you don't want to gamble 2025 on this position. Brent Venables can't afford to gamble 2025 on this position. And there's this, when you have the struggles that Oklahoma's had, it creates a challenging environment for both players and the coaches. And suddenly the team's ability to retain key players, guys like Jackson Arnold, it becomes crucial for future success. And I like what Brent Venables said. He emphasized the program is committed to building a strong culture and attracting players that are truly dedicated to the team. He believes that Jackson Arnold falls in this category. Here's what Brent says. At the end of the day, for me, I want guys that want to be here because they want to put on the crimson and cream. They love their coaches. They love the locker room. They love being an Oklahoma Sooner. That's where it all starts with me. I believe the guys in our locker room, that they love meeting that criteria, and I believe that firmly. So Brent Venables believes in the culture that he's established, the culture that he's built at the University of Oklahoma. But ultimately, the future of this quarterback position remains uncertain as we head into this last stretch of the season. Arnold showed flashes of brilliance last week in Oxford, but he has to show consistency. He has to show the ability to lead the team, and I don't believe that can be determined by one half of football or 4 quarters of football. We're not going to learn now just 1 week under the new coaching staff, offensive coaching staff. So that means to me, Arnold's a gamble. He's a gamble at this point. That entire position is a gamble at this point. And my question is, how would you bet? How would you bet on him?
Deciding which credit card or loan is right for you is like trying to choose where you want to eat for dinner. Except when you finally get to the restaurant, the menu's riddled with jargon that no average foodie could understand. So at Credit Karma, we keep things simple. We show you personalized recommendations that align with your money goals and help you turn the confusing fine print into terms you can actually understand. And as a cherry on top, we provide a detailed overview for a new card or loan before you apply. That way, we can help you make decisions faster and with more confidence. Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the new Prologue EV, there's a lot that could impress you about it. There's the class-leading passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
Oklahoma and Maine set for a 1:30 kickoff on Saturday. The Black Bears, a huge underdog in Norman, and you can't help but think, after you've watched Oklahoma play this season, that the Sooners aren't going to have some sort of struggle somewhere along the way. Remember the Houston game? The Black Bears are 4-4 on the season coming into Norman. They've lost 2 of the last 3 games, and they score an average of 24.1 points per game. Now, in terms of level of competition, it'll be the 31st time that they've played an FBS opponent, and they've only won 4 in those previous 30 matchups. So this is a game where Maine comes in as a heavy underdog. I think if you're Oklahoma, you're past the get-right game, you know? Like, we kind of thought the get-right game was Houston. Now you're just in straight survival mode. This is save your season. It's too late to get right. You got to get right. So you're survivor mode, and you're playing against a guy, quarterback-wise, that's Carter Peavy's completing 70% of his passes on the season, We're excited. We're excited as Oklahoma fans because Jackson Arnold completed 70% of his passes on Saturday, and that was a career best for him. Okay, 71%. Let's be fair. But Carter Peavy is averaging 70% on the season, but he's been sacked 23 times. And so you look at that and you think there's opportunity there. Brian Santana-Fis is emerging as the go-to back over the last couple of weeks, averaging 5.5 yards per carry on the season. Montego Moss is the other guy to watch out for in the receiving corps. 10.5 yards per catch on the season, 3 touchdowns. This is an offense that has the potential to do things, high percentage passes, which means the ball's going to be coming out quick. Like Oklahoma, they don't have a lot of time to throw the deep ball, but they can run. Then they've actually got a stable of backs, but Santana-Fis is the guy that's like I said, is emerging. So it's an offense that should be outmanned against Oklahoma's defense. But then you flip to that side of the ball, and you've got guys over there like linebacker Keyshawn Dyson with 50 tackles on the season. That's their Danny Stutzman. Xavier Holmes, 3.5 quarterback sacks. And again, this Jackson Arnold has been sacked 17 times in the last 2 weeks. We talked about 23 quarterback sacks in 8 games for Maine, how that opens up a window of opportunity for Oklahoma up front defensively. But Oklahoma has a quarterback in the last 2 weeks alone has gone down 17 times. So if you're Oklahoma, what do you do? What do you want to accomplish against this team, against this opponent? Well, the first thing is you got to win. I mean, that's the no-brainer. I think Oklahoma, we'll get into point spreads and all that stuff. Oklahoma's almost a 5-touchdown favorite in this game. You have to win. Even at 4-4 for the Sooners, this would be the greatest upset of the college football season. You have to avoid that. Now, beyond that, you want to look good. You want to look like you kind of got your stuff together. If you're Kevin Johns, if you're Joe John Finley, you're licking your chop at this opportunity because it's not your second game as the quarterback's coach for Johns, the offensive play caller for Joe John Finley. It's your second opportunity to prove yourself, and you're going against the most inferior team that's been on your schedule. So you want high efficiency. You don't want to punt. You don't want Elzinga on the field hardly at all on Saturday night or Saturday afternoon. You want efficiency from your offense. You want a high yards per play average. You want that average north of 4.5 for the game. You got to get chunk plays. Guys like Brennan Thompson who haven't been able to get the ball for whatever reason. Guys like Jacquez Petaway, Caleb and I talked about him Sunday night. Guys that have just disappeared. You have to get the offense going. Bauer Sharp can't just make 5 catches for 80 yards, but miss 7 blocks. Balance this thing out. Run the ball as effectively as you pass the ball, and do both of those with efficiency. Balance the offense. This is a glorified scrimmage for Oklahoma, and you have to show that you're moving in the right direction. Yes, winning is everything on Saturday, but looking good, looking competent while you're winning, that's even more important. And if you're trying to figure out, well, what did you just say? Think back to the Houston game. Oklahoma won that game. Offensively, they did not look very competent in doing so. Competent breeds success. Success breeds confidence. Oklahoma is going to have to beat Missouri, Alabama, or LSU to get bowl eligible. If you walk out of here Saturday afternoon because you won a game on a late safety that saved the day and swung the momentum, there's not going to be any confidence that they're going to beat Missouri the following weekend, or that they're going to beat Alabama, or that they're going to go into Baton Rouge and beat Louisiana. They just don't have it. If you survive Maine, you can't go on the road for 2 of your final 3 SEC games with a ton of confidence. So you have to balance the offense. You have to run the ball and pass the ball with efficiency. You can't turn the ball over. And I don't blame Jackson Arnold for his fumble against Ole Miss. He just got blasted. I don't blame him for that. Now, Taylor Tatum, you got to question. I mean, this is a guy who fumbling seems to kind of be part of his MO at this point. But again, we're talking about a freshman, a true freshman. This is a game where you grow up. You got to avoid penalties, false starts. Oklahoma should protect Jackson Arnold and do so without holding. Oklahoma should be able to move the ball any way they want to against this Black Bear defense, because it's FBS against FCS, and you're taking a step down in competition. If you struggle here, then there are all kinds of red flags. How do you not struggle? Well, you balance your offense. You run high percentage plays. You do take your shots, but you become efficient offensively. How many possessions turn into points? And that needs to be north of 60%, in my opinion. I think players to watch when you look at this game on Saturday for Oklahoma, obviously we spent the first 15 minutes of this podcast talking about Jackson Arnold, so he's on that list. I think the entire offensive line is on that list. But really, I'm looking at Javonte Barnes. Javonte Barnes is the go-to running back. He's the most powerful running back this team has. He's yet to produce a 100-yard game this season. I think this is the game. If it doesn't happen on Saturday, you got to start questioning whether it'll happen at all, right? I mean, if he can't do it against Maine of the FCS, can he do it at all? And so I think he becomes the focal point of the offense. You know, I've said it. I will always say it. If you've listened to the podcast for a long time, you've heard me say it. If you are just listening to it recently, you've probably heard me say it. Use the running game to set up the pass. Make those safeties step forward instead of step back. We saw that against Ole Miss. We saw them run with such success against Ole Miss that the Rebels committed to stopping the run in the second half. And I think that's where Maine's probably going to start. The best way to handcuff this offense is take away what they do well. Last week, we saw that the new idea of Joe John Finley's offense is going to be to run the ball, power run. You run it with the quarterback, you run it with the running backs. And Javonte Barnes gets put center stage. They're going to try to stop him. That's going to be their focal point. So that puts guys like Bauer Sharp, guys that should be, I feel like Brennan Thompson should be a guy close to the line of scrimmage. But apparently, if you listen to social media, they're running him on verticals. It's not that he can't get open. It's just there's no time. Then don't run him on verticals. Run him on drags or slants. Run him on a bubble out of the backfield in motion. They've got to get the ball to their playmakers in the passing game, and it's got to be short that turns into something downfield. And that's going to loosen up the defense for Javonte Barnes to run the ball. But Javonte Barnes is my highlight player. I'm expecting 100-plus yards from him on Saturday, which is crazy because he's not sniffed that this season. But I don't believe he hasn't done it because he doesn't have the potential. We know from watching him over the last 3 years, he has the potential. He hasn't done it because this offense has not had the potential. This offense has not had the ID of what they are. Now we kind of know what they look like. Maybe we don't know for sure what they are, but we know what they look like, and they look like a team that's going to run the ball. That puts Javonte Barnes in the spotlight. I think defensively it's pretty easy. You just look at Mason Thomas, and you turn him loose. When you look at Oklahoma's defensive front against the front line of Maine, the Black Bears should be behind the chains. The Black Bears should be the in and long position, like second and long, third and long, which opens up the doors for your pass rush specialist to have a good game. I think it'd be pretty cool. I think it's almost necessary that Oklahoma comes out of this game with more quarterback sacks than what Maine has. Right? I mean, isn't that the way it should be? This is Oklahoma, for crying out loud. 10 sacks last weekend. The 10 sacks that they gave up. Oklahoma needs to live in the backfield against Maine on Saturday. They need to make plays behind the line of scrimmage. They need to make tackles behind the line of scrimmage. They need to sack the quarterback. And I think that's guys like Mason Thomas, that's who's going to be the key to that. Your cheetah position guys, Maine's going to have, they're pretty much going to have the same offensive game plan as Oklahoma. Run the ball, stay, within 15 yards of the line of scrimmage in your passing game, and as the opportunity rises, take a deep shot. These two offenses are going to mimic each other. The question is, who has the most talent? On both sides of the ball, who has the most talent? And that should, unequivocally, it should be Oklahoma to answer on both sides. Defensively, Oklahoma should be better talented. I think they hands down are. Offensively, they should be better talented. I think they've got the better quarterback. I think they've got the better running back, probably the better skill position guys. I don't know across the board. But I think there's skill position guys at Oklahoma that are better than what Maine's going to put on the field. So Oklahoma should win those battles. Pressure the quarterback, force turnovers, make plays behind the line of scrimmage. That's an easy game plan that should breed success for Oklahoma on Saturday. Caleb's not with us, but we got over-under still to go. He went ahead and sent them to me, and we've got the SEC rundown. Thanks for hanging with the Sooner Nation podcast.
What's up, guys? It's the champ, Sean O'Malley, here to talk to you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the best place to win real money while watching football. Run your game on Prize Picks.
Prize Picks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code SPOTIFY. That's code SPOTIFY on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
How do you feel great on vacation? Like really good? Easy. You go to Aruba. You'll spend your time relaxing on cool white sand beaches and floating in healing blue water. You'll immerse yourself in natural wonder and find your center on an island where things move at your speed. You won't just feel great, you'll feel relaxed, renewed, and ready for life. That's the Aruba effect. Plan your trip at Aruba.com.
Blinds.com is kicking off the savings early with Black Friday mega deals all month long. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can even handle everything from measure to your whole home install for just one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 45% on select styles, plus a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
All right, here we go for the final segment of the Sooner Nation podcast, Oklahoma versus Maine on Saturday. Caleb's not with me, but we do have the over-under. He went ahead and sent me his over-under statements, and I'm going to tell you whether they're over or they're under. We got the SEC rundown. Not a lot of good games in the SEC this weekend. And then obviously I'm going to give you a score prediction there at the very end for Oklahoma and Maine. Let's jump into this with the over-under. What we do here is one of us throws out a stat. Over or under is going to be the response and the reason why. So the first thing that Caleb says, he's got 4 he offered us today. The first one is this: over under 350 total yards of offense for Oklahoma. I think I have to go in the over here. I think I have to go in the over for a couple of reasons. The first reason is I think Joe John Finley is a better play caller than Seth Luttrell. Now, I know that's not saying a lot based off of what we got out of Seth Luttrell through the first 7 games of the season, but the offense looked like they were pointed in a direction on Saturday. They got derailed by the adjustments Ole Miss made in the second half, and Oklahoma just didn't have the playmakers to adjust to the adjustments. But they did look like they had a game plan. They looked like they found executable plays. They looked like they were moving in the right direction. And in doing so, they had over 300 yards of offense against Ole Miss. So you got to think they can get that extra, 35, 40 yards of offense that they need to cap 150 against Maine. I think the offense has been frustrated this season. I think they've been, rightfully so. They've been beaten up by the fan base. They've been beaten up in the media. But this is a game where they kind of get to vent and release that frustration. So, yeah, I'm going to say over 350 yards for Oklahoma's offense. Over under 3.5 sacks given up for Oklahoma. Man, here's the thing is that how can you go under on that? Knowing what you know about this offense, seeing what you have seen, and then you got Jacob Sexton, who's not going to be playing, who is arguably, I don't even know if you can argue it. He is your best offensive lineman, and he's not going to be out there. I don't know how you could take the under. Even though it's just Maine, how do you take the under? I feel like if you can limit the quarterback, this is so bad to say this. I feel like if you can limit the quarterback sacks to 5 or less, that's good. 5 or less is good. I have to go with the over. I mean, I hate that, but I have to go with the over on 3.5 quarterback sacks given up. Over under 9.5 tackles for Danny Stutzman. That means Danny needs to get to 10. I mean, man, yes, I'm gonna say over. I'm trying to analyze this by what Ole Miss, what Maine's going to try to do offensively, and I don't think what Maine's going to try to do offensively is going to limit Danny Stutzman that much. Talent-wise alone, I mean, Danny's just going to be when the Maine offense is on the field, Danny's going to be one of the top 3 athletes on the field. Of the 22 players on the field, he'd be one of the top 3. Number 1 and number 2 arguably would be, on the field with him. Peyton Bowen and Billy Bowman, right? Top 3 athletes on the field. I say he hits the over. Unless, here's the only caveat here. This turns into a blowout situation and Danny doesn't play more than 2 to 2.5 quarters. That said, dang it, now I'm changing my mind. No, I'm sticking with the over. Sticking with my gut. 9.5 tackles, I'm going with the over. And this is the most interesting one right here for me. Over under on turnovers forced at 2.5. How many turnovers were Oklahoma forced on Saturday? 2.5 is what we're set at. That means the Sooners have to get 3. They haven't really been doing that recently. That opportunistic defense that we saw against Texas, against Tennessee, and we saw it through the first 5-6 games of the season. It's opportunistic defense that won the game at Auburn with a Kip 6. They've stopped getting those turnovers. I mean, the ball's still hitting the ground. Think about the touchdown against the Longhorns. The ball's still hitting the ground. It's just they're not getting it. This would be a good revival moment for them. That means they'd have to get 3. I say they can do that, right? I don't know if it was Missouri that I would say 3, but it's not Missouri. I mean, this is the weakest opponent that Oklahoma's faced all season long in terms of level of competition. I mean, they're going to be on the field, and this isn't a shot at Maine. This is just, it is who it is. Oklahoma's going to be on the field with guys who weren't good enough to play at the FBS level. They were good athletes, some of the best in their school, some of the best in their state, but they just weren't good enough to hit the field consistently against programs like Oklahoma. Oklahoma should flex on Saturday, and in doing so, that means you force the turnovers. So I'm going to say over on 2.5. That gives us three plus turnovers for the week for the Sooners. I'll take that. I think I'll take that pretty handedly. I think when you look at the SEC rundown, like I said, you got a bunch of garbage games in my opinion, and I include Maine, Oklahoma. That's an important game. It's an important game, but it's not a game that's going to get viewership. But you look at UMass against Mississippi State. That's really not that important of a game. Mississippi State's not going bowling. What are they, like 1-7 on the season? They can't go to a bowl game. But in terms of importance and relevance for the season, Maine at Oklahoma carries a lot more. A lot more relevance, a lot more importance. But still, when you look at Kentucky at Tennessee, Ole Miss at Arkansas, Vanderbilt at Auburn, Florida, Georgia, those are the good games in the SEC this weekend. Even Texas A&M at South Carolina has some intrigue. I think Florida, Georgia has got to be, right? That's got to be the game of the week in the SEC. And the Bulldogs 16.5-point favorites over the Gators. I like that point spread. I think I would. I know I've talked about big point spreads in conference play, especially late in the season. I think I like that point spread. I think I see Georgia winning this, like double them up, like 30, 35, 34, 17, something like that. So I think I have to go on that point spread and say I would take the Bulldogs. Now, Florida's in a position a lot like Oklahoma. They're at 4 wins on the season. So they got to pick up 2 more. I don't see them doing that in Athens. But Georgia's still, you're in a beauty pageant phase of the season, right? It's not just wins and losses at this point. It's how do you look winning? So Georgia can't, they can't just go out there and look lackadaisical against Florida. It's a game that there are 17.5-point favorites. You got to go out and you got to win by more than 18 points because you're the number 2 team in the country. You've got that 1 loss on your record, but you're breathing down Oregon's neck. And you're just waiting on the Ducks to stumble. And if they do stumble, you don't want to give a voter a reason not to put you at number 1. So, yeah, I think Georgia wins that going away. I think they win it by more than 17. I find it interesting. Vanderbilt, for as much of a comeback story as they've been this season, the Commodores are a touchdown underdog at Auburn. Auburn's 3-5 on the season. Vanderbilt 5-3. Auburn's 3 wins away from bowl eligibility. Vanderbilt can lock that up on Saturday. Auburn's 1-4 in conference play. Vanderbilt 2-2. Why? I get it. The game's at Auburn, but what have the odds makers seen from this that make you think Auburn's a full touchdown favorite in this game? I mean, I can see a path for Auburn winning. I just don't. That point spread. I look at that point spread. I'm like, I like that. I think if I was throwing coins, I would throw coins at Vanderbilt +7. All right, let's talk about Oklahoma. Oklahoma at Maine. ESPN matchup predictor obviously heavily favors the Sooners. Oklahoma with a 98.4% chance of winning this game. According to DraftKings, the Sooners are 34.5-point favorites, and the over-under is 46. So you got Oklahoma as a 34.5-point favorite and you got an over-under at 46. What it tells you is that Vegas doesn't expect a lot of points from Maine. So what do we expect? Well, we go back, I mean, we spent, 40 minutes talking about how this is a must-win situation for the Sooners. I do think style points matter in terms of confidence. You can't just survive this game, you have to win it. And I think that's what Oklahoma does. I think this is going to be a blowout win for the Sooners. I know it's hard based off what we've seen over the last month. It's really hard to imagine Oklahoma winning in a blowout fashion, but I think that's what they do. I got 45-10 Oklahoma in this game. Sooners winning by 5 touchdowns and going into Columbia, Missouri next week with some confidence. That's my take. That's how I'm going. That's how I'm choosing to go into Saturday. I hope you go in there with me with that same Warrior mentality. Regardless, Caleb should be back with me on Sunday. We'll talk what was and what's to come. Enjoy your college football weekend, everybody. Boomer Sooner.
I'm gonna be the man who's working hard for you.